All right. Well, it's 3:05, so I think we are going to get started. Greetings, everybody. My name is Zach, and I'm an organizer with UAW Member Action. Welcome to our training on dealing with difficult supervisors. For those of you who are unfamiliar with us, UAW Member Action is a network of UAW members. We support each other to get more involved in our union, better understand and enforce our contracts, and make positive change by exercising our rights as union members. So for some of you who are coming in, still just a little bit, who is this workshop for? It's for all members, right? A lot of it focuses on stewards, but even if you're not a steward, you still have to deal with difficult supervisors. And you can advise your coworkers about the grievance process, help enforce your contract, hold your stewards and shop committee accountable. And also, if you're running for union office, this is an excellent way to scale yourself up because one of your main jobs in any position in this union is going to be dealing with difficult supervisors. So a note on our agenda today, we've broken it into a couple parts. We have management tactics, where Gary Chenoweth Chenoweth, my apologies, is going to go over management tactics and how you can confront them. With Tarina Parnell, we are going to go over grievance hearings before, during, and after. And finally, with Joanna McLenithan, we're going to talk about turning up the heat and getting members involved as a group to deal with difficult supervisors. Finally, we're going to wrap up with a little bit of an opportunity to do a Q&A so that you guys can put your questions in the chat, and our wonderful panel here can take some time answering those questions as best they can. But first, a note of how to participate in Zoom polls. So part of the process here is we want to know, what you think is just keeping you engaged, and we can get a feel for the room, so we conduct polls. When we launch a poll, you should see this window on the right pop up on your screen. If the window does not automatically open, you can open it manually by going to the More button on the bottom right. And there is a polls and quizzes button that you can go to right there. So we're going to do a practice poll right here, just for you guys. Pardon me. Apologies. We're going to do a practice poll right here. Just get a second to bring it up. Are you a steward or a committee person? You can answer yes or no. Or if you're not, but you're involved in the grievance process. So, unit chair, etc. Going to give you just a minute here to answer. Maybe 10 more seconds. Making sure I'll give it a chance to figure it out. Okay, great. And it looks like most of you were able to answer the poll. Great. We have a lot of stewards here. That's great. We have a lot of people who aren't stewards here. That's also great. We love to get everybody's input and education. I'm sure everybody's going to have lots of questions going forward. So finally, all right, we have our instructors here today. I talked about them a little bit. We have Gary Chenoweth, who is from UAW Local 160, and he's a former committee man at GM. Tarina Parnell, UAW Local 1686. She's a chief steward at Cooper Standard Automotive. And we have Joanna McLenithan, who is a Marine Draftsmen Association, UAW Local 571. She's a steward at General Dynamics Electric Boat. So I'm going to hand it off to Gary here, and he's going to talk to you about management tactics. Gary?
Thanks, Zach. Good afternoon, Union family. The first thing we have with management tactics and dealing with a difficult supervisor is that a lot of times they'll try to make it hard on a new steward, or if it's somebody that's new in the company in the management position, they'll try to make it difficult on you. Now with GM, when you have any grievance process, the first step, which is paragraph 28 of the national contract, is that the member or a designated member from the group tries to deal with the situation before, they get the steward or committee person involved. But when that doesn't work out, that the person in, your group, your coworker can do it, then it's up to us to start working on it. So the first topic in dealing with the management tactics is stalling. So so stalling helps frustrate the membership when the supervisor uses it, instead of trying to deal with you or with your members in the group. So you have to let your members know in your group that management is stalling, because if not, then they get upset. Why is it taking so long to get this grievance on the road? Why are you not making any progress, when they're stalling? Management will stall when they're in the wrong. They'll refuse to meet with you or abide by the ground rules, or when they backtrack on something they've already agreed to. So management, it may be a situation where they have too few workers for the amount of work, and you got to keep the pressure on the supervisor and encourage your brothers and sisters to keep the pressure on the supervisor. Now, if it's a situation like where it's something like where it's harassment or something like that, the stalling with harassment really doesn't work. Something like harassment, you need to encourage your membership to maybe go with the EEOC if it's something you can't, deal with right away. If it's something that they continue to put on you, you don't want to have people feeling that way. Uh, the thing you want to do, the thing you don't want to do if management stalling is encourage your workers to your coworkers to do like a slowdown or a stoppage, because then management could file an unfair labor practice against you. So the NLRB says that the employers have the legal duty to bargain in good faith, and stalling is not part of that with their employer's representative. This duty includes not making certain changes without bargaining with the union, and not to bypass the union and deal directly with the represented employees. The next topic that management, oh, all right, I didn't realize we have a poll.
Sorry, we have a poll here, as part of, or did Gary, did you already say the answer? Apologies.
No, I didn't say
Okay,
the.
well, we have a poll here. Is management obligated to meet at a reasonable times to discuss grievances as part of installing? Just a couple seconds here. Okay. Looks like the majority of you have answered. Share the results. Looks like you guys overwhelmingly say yes, which is correct. Failure to meet at reasonable times and confer in good faith is an unfair labor practice charge. It's a ULP. Same thing like Gary said, that they will do the same thing to you if you don't, if you violate some aspect of your contract, you can do that for them as well. Negotiating and administering collective agreements are all part of a failure to bargain in good faith. So, all right, I'm going to hand it back to Gary here.
All right, the next topic that we have discussed is sidetracking. That's usually when management, when they meet with you or you with the member, tries to come up with other reasons not to deal with the issue at hand. Now, usually if it's you without the member, they're going to do something like belittle the member's character, say, Frank's always late, Frank's a bad employee, he doesn't do his job, things like that. Or if your member's there, they may like try to belittle the employee while he's there and ask things that aren't on topic. It's you need to tell the manager that, you're not there to talk about the other things. And if your member's there with you, to not speak up at that point, when they're trying to insult them or trying to, do something like that. There's times in disciplinary interviews when members say something that, makes things, worse for them. So, you always got to try to get the member and the supervisor to stay on the topic. And, if the management keeps going on with this, you got to speak up. And, this is the time, we're not supposed to use derogatory language, but you tell them, enough of this bullshit or stop being an ass and let's get back on topic. If, they do it like multiple times and they're not willing to deal with the grievance at hand or, work on it. That's what I got for sidetracking. Ignoring you. This is part of bargaining in good faith. You always want to keep your cool if they're ignoring you. You need to be persistent. If it's, something over and over again where they won't talk to you or, they feel like, they need to make a phone call, they're going to step out. Something that I suggest is to send an email copying their supervisor and labor department if you have that capability because labor's not going to want to be part of a grievance discussion where the manager is ignoring you because they know bargaining in good faith they have to talk to you. I mean, that's just part of the process. That will probably piss off the supervisor that you're talking to, but you'll probably get a meeting on it. It may not be, a great meeting, but if you're not getting anywhere, you need to do things to make sure that, your voice is heard, your members' voice is heard. So uh, that's what I got with that one.
We have another poll here. Is management obligated to furnish information requests associated with grievances? All right. Got a poll. Give you a couple seconds to respond. Okay. Gonna end the poll there. It looks like you guys, again, overwhelmingly responded yes. A couple of no's in there, a little bit of it depends. The answer is yes again. A failure to furnish information and reasonable that is reasonable and necessary for the performance of its representative functions, quote, right, in a reasonably timely manner is another unfair labor practice. Hand it back to you. Thank you, Gary.
Yep. And one thing on the note of unfair labor practices, as a committee person or steward, it's very hard to come up with an unfair labor practice that you would be able to process through against your first line supervisor. Usually unfair labor practices require quite a bit of evidence of what they're doing because you have to present that evidence to the NLRB. So unfair labor practices against them are not always the easiest thing, even if they're doing it or to prove, you know, working the problem through yourself is always going to work out better. Now, if you have a supervisor that is threatening people, insulting or intimidating people, that's usually a way for them to divide a group. Usually supervisors are going to pick on people they see as the weak link, people that they can, motivate to do extra work or look the other way when they do an illegal behavior. They try to divide people by race, sex, job classification, those type of things. So when you have situations like that, it's in your best interest to meet with your people and let everybody know that, they should keep a written log of this. Now, as evidence, when you're talking to labor, if you have multiple people writing down the same thing about the same supervisor, even if they're at different times, they're going to take that, a lot more into account. You know, if a supervisor is doing that to your employee, you're only going to get so far on that. But you have to have your people put pressure on the supervisor when they're doing that. Try to just try not to get intimidated by it. Don't react, but just keep going on. For you, if they're trying to intimidate you, I would ask the supervisor if they're having a bad day or something. As committee people or stewards, we can't be intimidated by people, even if you feel like you're having a hard time with it. You just can't. And, talk to the other committee people or stewards around there about how to deal with the person because, they may have dealt with them before, but, nobody, no union member should ever be insulted by a member of management, especially in today's day and age. 20 years ago is a little bit different. I had a supervisor at one point. I wasn't in the union then, but he called people of races pineapple people, and it just, that's not the workplace. Hopefully, most of you deal with today, but you know, just keep up with it, keep up the good work, and try to get as much information as possible if it does act this way. I mean, pray for the next one. Not keeping their word. So I recently had a couple people ask me about a settled grievance I had because labor's disputing it. So part of the issue was the original copy of the grievance went away. So I have copies of the copy, but you have to take your grievance and then also look for supporting evidence to go along with your grievance, whether it's like payroll records, attendance records, written work in the department, but always try to keep that record together. And I would advocate if your workplace is willing to go to a virtual workplace instead of just a written workplace. I mean, we're still with the paper. It's much better if you have it on a computer because a lot of times, I know with my collection of paperwork I have like multiple file cabinets of paperwork. And it's hard to keep everything organized. And you have things like floods and different things like that, or the paper starts to fade over time. The more you as stewards and committee people can, go electronic, I'm totally in support of that. So that one. It's out of my hands. I can't do anything. Well, this is a supervisor being lazy when they want to do this. You at times, if you have a supervisor saying this, it's either they're not willing to do anything on the topic and you're just going to have to escalate it, or you have to propose a solution, or your members, together come up with a solution, something that the supervisor is capable of fixing. If he's not, you just have to move it on to the next level, but a lot of times they'll do that, when they think they can push it over on the people that, they can't do anything about it. So it's just got to stay as it is. And it doesn't have to stay as it is. If there's a problem, they can't fix it, work on it with the next level. And you want to be specific, like specific about the solution, and like I said, be prepared to escalate it to the next level. Sweet talking. So I know supervisors do this a lot when they want to convince a member to do something in their favor, whether it's like doing extra work for no pay or telling them, well, it's okay if I help you on your job because you're really overworked. Things like that, which take dollars out of our members' pockets. They'll also do that when they try to get a member to go against a grievance that another member has. Like, Frank, you're a real good guy. What Jim says is, that's not the way it should be. It should be like this. So you can't let them sweet talk your members or sweet talk you. We should never, be friends of management. We should never be in their debt. We can be respectful to the supervisors, but we just can't be friends. You shouldn't be going out to the bar after work with the supervisor. I mean, you just shouldn't. If you're representing your members, you can't do that and be a good steward as far as I see it. And also, if they're telling you this and they want to put off like a settlement, don't listen to that either. You have to demand a settlement on time. And, it's too, I think a lot of younger members and newer stewards didn't see like what fighting there was in the old time. And I'm not saying I'm an old timer. That's not what I'm saying. But, it's the union's different than it used to be. So remember, no matter what they're promising you or whatever, you can't take them up on their offer. Don't take benefits from a manager or a group of managers because in the end, it's just going to cost the union. And my last topic to look at is stonewalling. Uh, so with stonewalling, supervisors, will just figure out different ways to say no or figure out ways to change a problematic behavior. Now, I know, like when meeting with management, if it's over a grievance, I would maybe give the manager 3 times at most, of meeting with them, trying to get the problem changed. If not, you have to escalate something like that. And if your members are being stonewalled on a problem, I would tell them, keep putting in committee calls, keep asking the boss why things are this way, why things aren't changing. Let them know, members in your group that your supervisor keeps saying no and is not willing to change. So everybody's on the same page. An informed membership is a membership that works to help you, solve problems. If you think you can solve problems all by yourself, no, that's not the way to do it. Keeping everybody involved is the way to make effective change in your group, effective change for the supervisors, and effective change to keep the membership happy. And I think that's what I got for stonewalling. So the bottom line is document, 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 and document it 3 times over. And don't just keep one copy of a grievance, keep multiple copies if you have a written paperwork. Keep them in other areas. Look for other people that are experiencing the same thing in the plant or in other plants, people see how other committee people worked on the problems and always escalate if necessary. Don't hold off on escalating. Move it up to the next level because if you're not getting anywhere, it's not going to change. It just won't. Keep moving it up until somebody listens and share the information with your effective members.
All right. Thank you very much, Gary. That was excellent, very informative on the different tactics management uses and how we can fight them. Uh, little bit of a taste there at the end of dealing with problems collectively, which is going to be our third section here. But first, we have Tarina Parnell, Chief Steward at Local 1686, to talk about grievance hearings, what to do before, what to do during, and how to follow up after. Tarina?
Hi, my name is Trina Parnell, and I am from Local 1686, and I'm the chief steward there. And dealing with a difficult supervisor in the hearing, you always want to be prepared. So much of what we're going to be talking about applies to all grievance meetings, but having a plan and being prepared and knowing how you're going to respond to management is especially important, especially with dealing with difficult supervisors. The last thing you want to do is go in and what I call wing it, because you could be missing great opportunities of what to ask for. Um, you're just missing opportunities of helping your member. So usually before I go into a meeting, if I don't know what the topic is, if management calls me up front, I'm going to stop in to whoever has asked for me from management and ask them what we're talking about. What's the topic, and get their information then. And then if something happens, I make sure to ask management specifically what the meeting is about. I want to know who all is going to be in there, um, and any other relevant information. I'm going to try to get as much information as I can before I walk into that meeting and before I talk to the member. So then when the member comes up, if it's not there already, then I'm going to pull them aside away from any management so I can talk to them confidentially. And then I'm going to get their side of what happened. I'm going to take notes, and then we're going to make a plan to go back in. And then I'm also going to prepare them for the meeting. I'm going to let them know that, short answers, don't elaborate. If it's a yes or no answer, answer yes or no. Only talk if when I look at you and give you, um, say yes, it's okay to answer that question. Because I don't want them to say something that could get them in deeper trouble. So I want to take control of that meeting. Uh, so we want to know which questions do we expect to be asked from management, and how do we plan to answer. So we want to make sure we have all that information, because the questions depend on the grievance. But for instance, for termination, I always want to make sure that the company goes first, because something like that is, they have to prove their case, um, basically beyond reasonable doubt, kind of like court. But they have to prove their case to terminate that person. Just cause is what we call that. So which questions do we need answers? Well, who's accusing the person of this? What they're accusing them of. Was there any witnesses around? And did they actually see them do it, or is it hearsay? And what resolution are we seeking? We always want the member to be made whole. And what I mean by that is like it never happened. Write up taken off their record. If they were terminated, we wanted them brought back immediately, reimbursed for all their lost time, any money that would go into their retirement, everything. It's like it never happened. Um, and if members are present for the meeting, in that kind of meeting, then when should the member speak? Like I said before, I only want them to speak when I look at them and say, go ahead and answer that question, because I don't want them answering something they shouldn't. What you say can and will be used against you. Uh, at what point should we caucus? When things are getting heated is normally when I'll say, okay, we're going to step out. We're going to talk to the member. Or if the member says something they didn't tell me, and I don't have, if I feel blindsided, so I want to take them out and get specifics on what they're talking about. So what will we do if things get out of hand? Like I said, I stop the meeting. And if the company starts to badger people, insult them, normally I ask the member to step outside, because then I'm going to talk to management. I don't like to get in an argument with management with the person sitting there, because they don't need to witness all that. And then once I've let the management know that what their behavior is unacceptable and we are not tolerating this. Then I'll bring the member back in. If it goes south even further, I stop the meeting and say, okay, you're willing to bargain. Now we're going to file a grievance and we're just going to stop the meeting there. I'm not bringing that member back in to be badgered. And then I always discuss the plan of what we're going to do before we go into the meeting. I'm going to let the member know, hey, this is what the company is saying, but this is what we are going to do. This is what I'm going to do for you, so that they already know what's going on and that they're not blindsided and get emotional outbursts. We want to prevent the emotional outbursts. And then when we're in the meeting, during the plan, during the meeting, we want to stick to that plan. We want to make sure that management stays on topic. If management sidetracks, we can tell them, hey, we're here for this. If you want to talk about that, we can set up a time later to talk about that. But right now, we're going to stick on this topic. And, and then we want to make sure we take control of that meeting by asking the questions. And then we want to remind the member not to respond if they are targeted directly, because what management's trying to do is push their buttons, get them to respond with emotion. That way they can, get them for that in the meeting. Um, and after the meeting, we want to assess with the member how it went. Normally, I'll take them to the union office. Our union office is inside the plant. So we'll go in there so we can have nobody bother us. And then I debrief with the member. I ask them how they think it went. I tell them how I think it went. And if it went well, I tell them, this is what I think. If it didn't, then I'm going to tell them what my plan is going forward. And then I also ask them to write a statement. I want them to write in their own words what happened. And then I'm going to keep that statement in a file in case I need it later. Because sometimes, well, a lot of times it rears its ugly head with another member, and I can pull that information and use it. And then I let them know what the resolution is, what I'm asking for, and if I'm going to escalate it for the grievance, and then I go through the grievance procedure with them. This is what happens, and then I also let them know that I will keep them. Um, I'll let them know how things are going through the grievance process. They'll never just wonder what's going on with my grievance. I keep them up to date. And that's what we got.
Okay, thank you, Tarina, for that great information about how you can be prepped for a first step meeting with management. So now we're going to do some here. We're going to do a role play. This is based off of a real situation that Tarina has been involved in. We are going to put into practice some of what Tarina talked about, and you're also going to see some of the tactics that management uses and how different stewards respond to them. I am going to be playing a worker who has been wronged. Tarina is going to be playing herself. She's going to be playing a steward. And Joanna McClinathan is going to be playing the supervisor. So we have a little scenario here and just some context. In this example, a worker goes outside to retrieve cardboard because the team leader that usually gets it was out for the day. While there, they conversed with a coworker in a different department who was informing them not to throw away cardboard if they see. So a work-related conversation. They were disciplined for this, despite the fact that there were other members of the team standing outside right next to them on an unscheduled smoke break, therefore making it uneven application. So we're going to start just with Tarina coming in and talking to Joanna. We're going to have two role plays here, just to give you a heads up. The first one is going to be a bad example of Joanna playing what some of the tactics that difficult supervisors can use in a situation like this. Tarina is going to be playing a steward who is not prepped and doesn't really know how to deal with these things. And then we're going to follow it up with some discussion about what went wrong, and then we're going to show you a good example. So I'm going to kick it to Tarina, who is going to knock on the door and come in without me or having talked to me, and just start talking to Joanna. So I'm going to kick it to Tarina. Go ahead.
Knock, knock, knock. Sorry, it looks like Zach's not here yet, but let's just go ahead and get to it. So why did you write Zach up?
Hey, Tarina, we really got to get these guys under control. They're just on their phones all the time and they want to argue with us. Your people won't stop taking these half-hour bathroom breaks.
I know, I see him doing it all the time, and I don't know what to do. I see it all the time. I've said something to him, but they just keep doing it.
Well, it wouldn't be so much of a problem if Zach actually did his job consistently. He's been a pain in the ass around here since he got into the union, and he was really good before that.
I'm sorry. I'll talk to him about it. They said they said they would do better. Well, I talked to him before, and he said he would do better, but I will talk to him again.
Knock, knock, knock. I'm coming in because they got here before me. Step into the office. What are you guys talking about? Tarina, you started without me?
Look, we both know how important it is to get those parts out. How else do you expect us to keep up with this product? We all have to make sure we have a job. Agree with us or not on the fairness, we are just going to give you a verbal this time. It's going to be documented, but it's only a verbal.
How is a verbal documented? This is bullshit. You're starting without me. I haven't done anything wrong. I don't know. Like, what are you doing here, Tarina?
Sit back down, Zach. You're going to listen to what she has to say.
Actually, I got to run. I have to go take a phone call. Bye, guys.
Tarina.
Well, Zach, that didn't work, but you only got a verbal. It'll be fine. It could have been worse.
All right. End scene. Okay. That was clearly not the best. So we're just going to give you a second. If you guys could write in the chat and make sure that you have everyone selected as to who it's going to, of like, what are some of the things that you think went wrong here? I'm just going to give you a minute or two. Specifically, things that we talked about in the first section with Gary, if there's anything that you noticed. Starting with everybody present. Shouldn't agree on the fact that I'm insubordinate. Yeah, right. Kind of giving into everything. Yeah. Sidetracking. Yeah, insults came in. Started without everybody in agreement, right? All right. Yeah. Definitely. All of those. It wasn't good. Should have started without me present. Yeah, absolutely. That's a big one. So, Tarina, if you could just talk about what went wrong a little bit.
Yeah, pretty much what everybody has said is I didn't have a plan going in. I went in, sat down with the supervisor, and kind of asked him what was going on, but agreed that Zach's not a very good worker, and kind of sided with them, and sweet talk. We come to an agreement that he's still gonna get rid of. This is gonna be a verbal. I didn't ask for anything, any resolution. I just took what the company was willing to give us. Then when Zach did come in, first of all, I'm sitting there with the supervisor when Zach shows up. Never sit with management. It makes it look like you're siding with management. You always want to distance yourself. You could go in and talk to them, but wait for, if the person's not there yet, go outside the office and wait for them out there. So then when we're in there, instead of telling management not to disrespect the employee, I disrespected them on the side for management. So I didn't take up for this member. And then at the end, I did not make management, when she said she had to take a phone call, I didn't make her stick with the meeting that she had called. So I let them, stall, or I let them take control of the meeting, which we should take control of it, keep them on topic. And I did not do that. And I did not get anything in writing, any resolution. I didn't talk with the member afterwards to get their, side of everything. So basically everything.
Yeah, terrible. I know maybe even a little bit over the top, but demonstrates some of the things, and I'm sure we all
I
have
don't
stories.
actually I've seen it go like this before, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not
I'm
too much
sure.
out of the room.
I'm sure we all have horror stories. So, all right, we're gonna do one where there's a little bit of a plan. Same situation, same players. But Tarina, for context, has come in. She's previously already documented dates and times of other operators who have been taking extra breaks in the same area with supervisor knowledge. She's got a plan. She's got some questions already of what she wants to ask management. And we are going to start with me coming up to Tarina out in the hallway outside of the office where we can talk beforehand. So, all right, we're going to start. So, okay, Tarina, so you want to talk before the meeting?
Yeah. Let's go where we can have some privacy, because
Sure.
I want to get some notes. I want to take some notes while you talk. And okay,
Okay.
so now tell me, what, in your words, what happened.
Yeah, so Bob, our team leader, he isn't in today. He's usually the one that handles the cardboard. As you know, I went out back to handle it, and Jim, came out to me and told me that they needed the cardboard for the pallets today. Was just, kind of explaining to me kind of where I should have things, all that. And all of a sudden, Joanna comes out of nowhere. I don't know if she was hiding around the corner or what. We weren't talking, but you know, but just a couple seconds, and she comes out and uh, hand, writes me up for lollygagging, for you know stealing time, even though there's just a couple of our coworkers, some of her favorites, just like literally right there, having a smoke break. But somehow I'm the one who gets tripped up.
Did she hear what you guys were talking about? Did she ask you what you guys were talking about?
I'm no, no, she just came in. She was red in the face.
Was there any witnesses around that heard all this or seen what was going on?
Yeah, I mean, there's Jim, obviously, and there's like cameras, and there's of course the people who are out there having a smoke break.
Okay. So when we go into this meeting, don't speak until we're on topic, and
Okay,
only if I call on you.
okay,
You don't have to respond to them,
okay,
and don't let them get your goat. They'll try to insult you, but it's just a tactic. This isn't an isolated incident, so we shouldn't let them off the hook. If we nip this in the bud, if we don't nip this in the bud, it's going to make things a lot worse later on.
okay,
Okay, here's what we want to get out of this. We want the discipline removed and everyone treated the same. If that doesn't work, here's what we'll do next. We're going to go to a step 2 grievance and get more of your co-workers involved. I'll talk to the witnesses and all the notes that I've taken on previous dates and times of people doing the same thing and not getting in trouble.
okay.
So
You're right. I'm ready. Thanks, Tarina.
you're welcome. Knock, knock, knock. All right, we're here and ready to get into it. Why did you write up Zach?
I saw him out there for 10 minutes. They were laughing and joking, and they weren't talking about cardboard.
When did you hear when did you hear them talking? Did you ask them what they were talking about? And do you have proof that they were talking for that long?
I just know how they are. I don't need proof.
You don't have any proof that they were there that long. And anyways, this is disparate treatment. There were 3 other employees right by you out back that were on an unscheduled smoke break. Why are you picking on Zach?
We really got to get these guys under control. All they want to do is be on their phones and argue with us. Your people won't stop taking half-hour bathroom breaks. Zach is the worst of them all. He never gets his parts done on time.
We're here to talk about this particular discipline. If you have some other concrete incidents, we can set up a time to talk about them later. But right now, we want to stick on this topic.
Come on, you know Zach has been a pain in the ass since he got into the union.
You had 90 days to get rid of him. We came here to have a reasonable discussion about this one incident. If you're going to use insults and cuss, then we can end this meeting right now, and I have no choice but to file this grievance.
Okay, let's talk about this incident. Zach, you know you weren't talking about cardboard, were you?
Trina, should I answer?
No, you don't have to answer this. I'm representing Zach. You can talk to me. It's up to you to prove Zach was out there stealing time. Zach doesn't need to do your investigation for you.
I just want to have a talk with him and give him a verbal warning.
Are we going to have a meeting with all your other favorites who are out there smoking outside and give them verbals also? Because you're singling him out. You just can't suspend the contract when you feel like it and treat people differently. I'm going to insist that there is no disciplinary action taken.
Well, look, I have a meeting I have to prepare for. I will get back to you on this.
Well, look, I have a meeting I have prepared for. I'm sorry, I'm looking wrong one. This this is the time we set aside to talk about this. Are we moving forward with the discipline, or am I going to have to file this grievance?
Okay, fine. You know what? We'll withdraw the discipline, whatever you want.
Okay, I'm going to need that in writing. Are you ready to sign here?
Yep, here you go.
Okay, now I'll take Zach up to the union office and talk about what happened.
Okay.
And so I asked him to write the statement about what happened. And I tell him I'm going to write a follow-up email to management to let them know what happened in the meeting and the results of the meeting. And if they try to retaliate, ask for me by name and let me know immediately. You don't have to put up with it. We can fight and get your coworkers on board if we need to. This will be all filed away so we can access it if we need it later.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. I even had a steward, kind of fight for me like this. Sometimes they just throw me under the bus. The other steward, she looks a lot like you, actually, last time this happened. All right. Well, thank you for having that back, Trina. All right. End scene. Excellent. All right, Trina, if you can talk a little bit about what went right.
I know some people are probably thinking why I threw other members under the bus, but in my experience, I've been a rep for 23 years. If it's their favorites, they're not writing them up. So they're the snitches. They're ones that will go above and beyond and do anything that they're asked to do. So I know they're not going to write them up. You got to know your audience when you do things like that. But the first thing I did was I prepared Zach. I let him know what was going to go on in the meeting, and let him know that they're probably going to insult him to stay calm. I kept the management on track. She wanted to take a phone call or said she had another meeting to go to. I let her know right then that, we're here for this. Go ahead and make your decision now. If not, we're going to go ahead and grieve it. And then afterwards, I took Zach up and kind of debriefed him, let him know that what I was going to do, that it wasn't just over and done. That, I was going to file away. I'd like to have that statement to go with all of these notes. And that if he's retaliated against, to let me know immediately, and we would deal with that too. That he does not have to put up with that.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Tarina. And also, just to note, she got a resolution in writing right at the end. Really excellent.
Oh yeah.
Great work, everybody, the both of you, for going through and demonstrating some of what this looks like. Looks like in the chat, some of those behaviors were familiar to to some of the people who were watching. And thank you, Tarina. So All right, we are going to now talk about, Gary talked about filing ULPs. We've talked about grievances. But at the end of the day, we know that those sets of tools, though very important, are just one other tool. Another tool that we have is getting our coworkers involved. At the end of the day, we're stronger together as a union, and that's where our power comes from. So Joanna McClinathan from UAW Local 571 is going to talk about how you can get your coworkers involved, as well as talk about a recent example of when she brought some of her coworkers together to turn up the heat on a difficult supervisor. So Joanna?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Like Zach said, I'm from local UAW 571. I am a union steward on our community services committee, our women's committee, and recently during contract negotiations, I was on our strike prep committee. So labor law and the grievance process and our contract are all tools that we can utilize to solve problems in our shop, but they're not the only tools that we have. We're stronger when we work together, and you can ask other members to get involved to fight against a difficult manager. Chances are, if one person is having a problem with a supervisor, there are likely others. Not all of our management relies on us being divided to get their way. So if one person is dealing with issues, it's great to bring other members in to kind of strengthen your argument and to build that solidarity. Not all of our member involvement needs to be big. They don't have to be these big dramatic confrontations. There are plenty of little ways that you can start to include people to build momentum towards your I guess fight with the boss is how I'd put it. Some of the things that we did is we did cafeteria meetings. We would have everybody wear their red shirt and show up for lunch at the same time. You go to lunch or breakfast as a group so that management sees that you're all standing together and you can organize. We wear buttons or stickers or our red shirts all on the same day. When somebody's filing an EEO or filing a grievance, you can have other members act as witnesses or sign statements in support of their fellow members. Um, Things like a button day or a red shirt, they seem small, but they show show the boss that their support for their union, support for their coworkers, and it can change how they perceive the balance of power in the shop. Um, so anytime we can get our coworkers involved to confront management, it is extremely important to have a plan. There are 3 steps that we need to accomplish so we can successfully use our collective power. My coworkers and I have I missed something, Zach. Sorry. So when management wins when members are divided.
Oh, apologies. Having a little bit of trouble with the slideshow. It doesn't want to go back. It only wants to go forward. Apologies, folks. Totally fine. You're doing great. Okay. Is this the proper slide? This is the slide you wanted, correct?
It should be go down. I think the next one.
Okay. How about that?
And nope, one more.
There we go. Finding out. So step 1 of the process, finding out who else is having issues.
Right. Okay. So anytime we get our coworkers involved to confront management, it's extremely important to have a plan. There's 3 steps that we need to accomplish so we successfully use our collective power. This is the strategy that we used to confront an abusive manager in our workplace recently. The first step was to find out who else is having issues. Management wins when members are divided. So talk to your coworkers, find out who else is dealing with problems, what they're dealing with, is it the same supervisor, etc. This can only happen when you're staying in close contact with your coworkers, with the members on your floor. The way that I accomplished it is by walking the floor regularly to help build those relationships and help identify problems and build trust. I usually walk my area about once a week. I tend to go down to the cafeteria for breakfast or lunch around the same time that I know the members I represent are going to be down there. It helps them to build confidence in me, build confidence in their coworkers, and when they're talking about who else is having issues with their specific supervisor, it's letting them know that they're not alone and helping to build the relationships among themselves and the solidarity. Um, the grievance that I'm currently working on, I inherited it, but I found out a lot of the extent of the problem through interviewing others that were within that group. We thought it was a problem with one person. It turned out to be a problem with the entire group. It was this very widespread abusive behavior. We're talking, she had a meeting with the group where she stood up in front of them and held up our contract book and said, you know, we're special and I don't have to follow this contract. And she was working with a very young, inexperienced group of members who didn't know any better. At the time, because they were a new group and it was a new section of our shipyard, they hadn't set up a they hadn't set up a rep over there yet. And I got sworn in December and inherited this part of it. She was also physically intimidating the members. She was hacking their emails, taking over their computers and sending emails from their accounts. Just kind of this horrifically abusive behavior. So the next step was to get organized. I helped the members to meet each other, to see that they're not alone. One way you could do this is to start a group text or WhatsApp chat. You could find a time before or after work to exchange notes. I mentioned that I would, you know, pop down to the cafeteria during breakfast and I, you know, say, hey, how's it going today? How's everything going this week? You know, have there been any issues? And 9 times out of 10, there's been an issue. And then I say, you know, send it over to me in writing, please, because we start to collect those. Um, I came up with a form that has the 5 W's on it, the who, what, where, when, and, you know, why, how, etc. And I sent it over to them. And so every time there was one of these incidences, they fill it out and they send it over to me and I collect it in a file on my desktop. It helps to keep things organized and it helps them to document the incident. It gives them very specific, you know, this is how it went down so that we make sure we have all of the information and it's concise and consistent. Um, and then we identified leaders in the group. They happen to have one woman in that group who is very trusted. They look to her because she happens to have a little bit more experience. She happened to actually get added to the group the same time that I got elected, so the timing worked out. And I identified as her as a leader, and she is kind of been the one over there that when things get out of hand, she reminds them, "Hey, you can call in your union rep. Hey, you know, you can send this over to Joanna and let her know what's going on." So identifying the leaders, identifying the trusted people that members are willing to go to and say, hey, you know, call in your rep at this point because this is unacceptable. Um, and then the next step is to take action. Show management that you are united by meeting in the parking lot and walking in together. Take your break together. File a group grievance. You want to pick an action that is visible and that the vast majority of members will participate in. Um, the extreme action that we ended up taking was once we had collected all of this information, all of these incidences, is we did a march on the boss. We took the entire group, we sat down and we confronted the department manager about the supervisor's abusive behavior. The abusive behavior was ongoing. After we had that big meeting, we got a commitment from him that he was gonna you know, he was gonna talk to her, he was gonna become more involved and you know, end the behavior. It didn't end. It's been ongoing. So we escalated to a larger group meeting where the members were allowed to confront the supervisor directly. Her manager was there, myself, my grievance rep were there, and the labor relations was also there. Um, we got another commitment from them that the behavior would change. She was also supposed to schedule one-on-ones that included the union. And the situation is ongoing. We have plans to further escalate the situation. And our union officer is now involved. He was actually there on Friday. So, but that was our big action, our big dramatic march on the boss, right? To kind of say, hey, you gotta cut it out because this is unacceptable. Um, but the the biggest help has been to walk around, build those relationships, build that trust, talk to the members, say, hey, I'm here for you. I have your back. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to fight this fight together. And I was only able to do that through building those relationships. We had some big dramatic moments, but that was only possible because we built confidence in one another through all of the mundane, everyday reactions, the cafeteria meetings, checking in with my members, just making sure they knew I was here.
Awesome. Thank you, thank you, Joanna, for talking about your fight against your abusive manager, and your takeaway of all the build up to that. And I just want to emphasize again, like Joanna did, the big dramatic actions take a long time in building a lot of trust to get to. And so the start is all those little interactions you have with these managers, all the little things that you do as both a steward and not a steward of building up relationships with your coworkers can contribute in the long term to pulling off bigger actions. So thank you to all of our panelists. Let's give them all a hand in the chat. And I don't know if you guys can react, if we can see that, but thank you guys so much. So we're gonna have a Q&A here in just a sec, but just wanted to just do a little bit of housekeeping beforehand. We have some additional resources which we are going to include in the email that we're going to send out to all of you afterwards. Becca, my coworker and the other organizer for UAW Member Action, just dropped in the chat our most recent webinar, Legal Rights of Union Representatives, which is on YouTube. She's dropping the rest of the links for all this stuff here in the chat, but it's going to be in the email as well. The Union Steward's Complete Guide is excellent for all sorts of union, steward, and also non-union steward related situations. It's a great article from a Teamster in labor notes of how they turn their backs on an abusive UPS manager. And then a really great article from CWA Local 4900, just on management stall tactics. A little bit of what we did here, but it goes into a little bit of different depth and has a little bit of a different focus. So all those are really excellent. So what training would you like us to offer next is a question that we have. There is, I'm going to put up a poll. Excuse me. Launch training here. There's 2 questions. We got a couple options that we've been talking about. Just cause, a training on past practice grievances, staying organized as a steward, understanding your contract, building power to win on non-contract issues. So we want to hear from you. What do you want to show up to? What do you want to get involved in? And if there are other topics, what are those? What are some of those that you'd like to see as well? So, all right, I'm seeing kind of all over the place. We'll give it just a couple more seconds here. Very cool, a lot of interest. Let's give it a couple more seconds while you guys do that. Before we get into the Q&A and another way that you can get involved. FYI, for the Q&A, there is a Q&A button if you go to more, just like we do with the polls. And if you go to the more section, there's a Q&A where you can write some stuff. And I'm just going to try and get as many questions as I can. Awesome. Okay, we got a lot of interest in a wide variety of trainings. We're really excited to keep working with you guys on that. So one final thing before we get to the Q&A. Another project that we're really excited about here at UAW Member Action is that we're building a stewards network, for a network for both stewards and committee people, depending on your employer. I know that they're called different things. We're sharing our challenges and victories across units, across locals, and even across industries. right? So we can make ourselves stronger stewards and committee people, lift each other up, um, so that we're not as siloed. You know, we can share our successes, our favorite tips. If you bring an issue, we can try and solve it, or at least get some advice. Right? There's no reason for us to be as siloed, and we can all work together to solve our issues. Our next meeting is going to be about putting this training into practice. Uh, so come with some questions specifically about difficult supervisors and how you're dealing with them. It's going to be this Thursday, July 31st at 8 p.m. Eastern. So if you're a steward or committee person, somebody's going to call you, myself, another steward who's involved in the network, and they're going to talk to you about what it's like for you as a steward. What kind of other trainings do you want? What kind of information do you want? And just start to talk to you about your shop. It's important that we build those relationships amongst each other. And they will also have the information for the like the Zoom and everything for that Stewards Network meeting. So again, 8 p.m. this Thursday, July 31st. We hope to see as many of you stewards and committee people there as we can. So now the Q&A. So what's going to happen is I'm going to look at our questions here, and I'm going to try and pick some out, and I'm going to shoot them to our wonderful panelists here. So if you guys are ready. So we have a question here. Is management able to skip steps in write up and give what they want as punishment? Meaning they have skipped steps 1 through 4 and gave a 5-day suspension for a first write up. Does anybody on our panel have an answer to that they feel like they're confident in?
Well, it doesn't always work that way, but it depends on the nature of the offense. You know, according to the guide they go by, if they think, you know, your behavior slash whatever was bad, they can. If it's something like a procedure where the amount of lates you get, if they skip to the fifth step, then something's wrong. If it's, you know, their third late and third late is supposed to be a warning, then that should be the case. Now, if you're stealing somebody's stuff, they might take you right to the fifth step. And just a little shout out here, by the way, if you do get a phone call from somebody in Michigan after this, try and answer it in case that's one of us giving you a call.
Yeah. Thank you, Gary. Here's one that I think is going to be maybe Joanna, but actually, or any of you, maybe you all have different opinions on how to deal with this. But somebody's asking about retaliation. You know, we're fighting difficult supervisors. How do we protect members once they decide to stand up? What are some of the things that we can do? And what do you say to them to get them to stand up that as well?
I know I tell them to document it, and then we'll try to get other members of the same, that if they're doing the same thing to them as a group, and that's how we try to settle it. I tell them, you know, you don't have to be retaliated against. Let a committee person know or your steward know immediately. Don't just let it go. But document. That's important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Joanna?
I was just going to echo that. Like, we document everything, and part of the reason that we, you know, did the big march on the boss and got that commitment was so that if she took action against the members, any further action against the members, we could document it and write it up as retaliation. So, um, you know, and we also had during our contract negotiation, she had a strike captain in her group because, as you can imagine, we needed one over there. And she actually came out and said in a management meeting, like, asking other managers how she could retaliate against this member, and the other managers had to remind her that legally she couldn't. So, you know, reminding the members of their legal rights, reminding the members that the union is there to protect them from retaliation has been really helpful in getting them, you know, to stand up for themselves in this situation for us.
definitely. It's very important. And also just editorializing a little bit here from myself, but having those relationships with each other and acting as a group, um, you know, management responds when you act together, right? It shows them that people have investment in the union, that they have the support of each other and acting together. So it's not just one person to retaliate against, but that they got to fight everybody. There's strength in numbers, like we've been saying, and those relationships that we have with each other. So I did just want to editorialize a little bit there myself. Um, let's see. We have somebody, how do you hold HR accountable? What steps to take? I'm assuming uh, that this person is asking, what if they don't do what they said that they were going to do? Which was answered a little bit in the training.
Yeah, if HR isn't accountable, then you do have to do things like go to your region or things like an unfair labor practice or NLRB charges. But those aren't all they're cracked up to be. I mean, the two times I got involved in NLRB charges, it was a long, drawn out process where they weren't really helpful. But the best thing is your region. If you have a problem with your region, like I see from you, Jeremy, then take your concern to the president's office. You know, the whole UAW is a chain that, you know, respects the membership, respects the committee people. If somebody is not working for you, go to the next level. You know, that's what we should be about is, you know, problem solving and helping the membership.
Yeah, I think yeah, there's a question I'm seeing from quite a few people that I think maybe we should address, which is, a lot of folks don't feel supported by their rep when dealing with some of these. And this is kind of a much wider issue. Maybe there isn't one answer to all of this, but I think it also goes for maybe folks who are watching that are not stewards that, might be a rank and file member that don't feel supported. So I guess there's a broader question there of like, what do you do if you feel like you don't have institutional support, which happens more than it should? Uh, do we have maybe some insight as to what to do in a situation like that? And what have you, the panelists, have you guys encountered that before, and what did you do?
I stepped up and became a union rep. That's kind of part of my story. Part of it is, my whole group got moved to a new location, which, we didn't have a rep in place. But the other part of it was I was worried that we were going to be stuck with ineffective reps like we had been previously. And I kind of had this moment of like, well, if I'm going to complain about it, then I need to step up and do it. And that's not to say that everybody's in the same situation, but that's kind of how I handled it, right? Is to like, I didn't have anybody fighting for me, so I wanted to make sure that I could fight for myself and I could fight for my coworkers. And I'm just kind of a pain in the ass, and I pester my grievance rep and I pester my officers. So I don't know if that's the answer everybody was looking for, but that's what I did.
Yeah. Trina?
Yeah, I'm the same way as I couldn't. That's why I became a representative, a steward, is because I couldn't get represented. I think that's why most of us do, is because we've had trouble in the past. But um, I have trouble with my servicing rep. Um, I've talked to Zach about it many times, and so what I've done is become as knowledge on labor laws, my contract, constitution, all of it as I could. That way I knew if he was lying to me, if he was blowing me off, or what he was doing, that I had that knowledge where I could say, whoa, that's not how it goes.
Yeah. So collecting knowledge, trying to get elected yourself, um, trying to just be the best steward that you can be. And if you're not a steward, some of that applies as well, trying to step up, which is, I know, not very easy getting elected, right? Um, and just once more, I would like to point out that you can get your coworkers together and get more people involved, whether you're a steward or not. right? You can get other people, if you're all facing the same problems, to sign on to a grievance, to uh, come together to fight a manager, right? Uh, the more people you have involved, for it pressures everybody, the union, it pressures the bosses, right? That as somebody who works there, right, nobody can take away from you the fact that you have relationships with your coworkers and that you're facing it together. And by acting together, you can get results, even if it's not easy, even if it's scary. Go ahead, Joanna.
No, I just wanted to add to that, that comes down to like also identifying the leaders in that area, right? Because they had their charge person over there who we identified as a leader, and so she's not a steward, but she is definitely, like, she was on the phone with me this weekend being like, hey, this is what happened over here, and making sure they're sticking together, making sure they're working together. So you absolutely don't have to be a steward to build that kind of momentum, right? And then pressure your union rep, which I don't feel pressured by her. Sorry, my dog has 2 cents. But pressure union rep, pressure your grievance rep, whatever you got to do to get action done. But you know, power in numbers.
Yeah, excellent, cool. Well, it seems like we might have a couple more questions, but we are at 4:21. Most of them have to do with how to pressure. Most of them have to do with kind of a lot of the same question. Especially if you're a steward, uh, come out if you have more questions. Come out to the meeting on Thursday, and if you can't, get in contact with us. Send us an email. You can send one to me at zach@uawmemberaction.org if you got some questions. Try and get in contact with you, and we can talk about how to deal with some of this stuff. And if I don't know something, we can try and find somebody who does. But especially if you're a steward, instead of just hearing from me or hearing from other stewards and supporting each other, that's one of the best things that we can do. It's one of our best tools that we have. So try and come out Thursday. Even if you can't make it, we're trying to come up with other ways that we can build those relationships and still stay involved. So even if you can't make it, talk to us. So with that, I just want to thank everybody for coming. And just tell everybody this has been great. Another big hand in the chat for our wonderful panelists. We're looking forward to having more trainings with you all and to building a stronger union together. So thank you all for coming.